This setting right here is easily the most important setting in the entire game. You have to make sure that this setting right here is off and you will shoot up the ranks. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Mizu. I'm a professional Rocket League player with over 14,000 hours in the game, and I'm here to give you, no matter what rank you are, the best settings in the game to help you rank up. Let's go. So first things first, you want to go to your settings here and you want to go to gameplay. This tab doesn't matter too much, but I would say turn on force default team colors. This just makes the stadium always look like normal, regardless if you're playing like a clan versus clan match. Personally, it kind of throws me off, so I like to have force default team colors on. And then going into camera, this is a very important option, so you guys want to make sure that you turn your field of view all the way to 110. No pro player in the world uses less than 110. You want to make sure you can see as much as possible. Going into distance, you want to make sure that you're rocking anywhere from like 260 to 290. Most pro players will use 280 to 270. It just gives you a solid amount to see the field without being too far from your car. Now, moving into height, you want to be anywhere from 90 to 110. Personally, I like having a little bit more height, but if you want to be a little bit lower to the ground, you can go ahead and use 90 height. Now, for the angle, most pro players will use anywhere from 3 to 4 angle, guys. Personally, I like having a little bit more of an angle to see my car, but if you want a lower angle, guys, you can use -3. The lower the angle, the lower you are to your car. Stiffness, now this is going to basically change how much your camera is going to zoom out or zoom back in based on how fast you're going. So you want a little bit of stiffness to kind of tell how fast you're moving around in the field. Personally, I use a 0.55 stiffness. Most pro players will use anywhere from 0.2 to 0.8. It's kind of wide. It just depends if you like feeling fast when you're moving fast or if you like your camera not moving too much when you're moving around the field. So the higher stiffness is going to have less camera movement. The lower stiffness is going to have more camera movement. So personally, I use a 0.55. Going into swivel speed, this is just your right stick. This is completely preference. It depends how good you are moving the right stick around. I use a 5.5, but I would recommend using anything from a 2 to a 7. In transition speed, this is going to be how quickly you look at the ball versus looking at your car when you select ball cam. Not many people in the world will use a 1.0 transition speed, and nobody in the world uses a 2.0 transition speed because that's going to give you no movement between. It's going to teleport your camera. That's not very good. So you want to use anywhere from like a 1.1 to a 1.9. It completely depends on your preference. The higher the transition speed, the quicker it's going to be moving between them. Controls, this is definitely going to be one of the more important settings out there. So for steering sensitivity, we're going to use a 1.5, and for aerial, we're using a 1.3. Now, this is my preference, but I would recommend to you use a minimum of 1.2 for both steering and aerial, guys. Minimum 1.2, because you literally do not turn as fast if you have anything less than 1.2. It is an absolute minimum, 1.2 required, and then you can use up to 3. I would not go higher than 3. You're going to be moving around the field too fast and have very little control. So I would use anywhere from 1.2 to 3 steering sensitivity and aerial sensitivity, guys. So you can go up to 3 here. But personally, I use a 1.5 for steering and a 1.3 for aerial. You can feel free to copy my settings if you'd like. Controller dead zone. Now, this one is very important, guys. Controller dead zone is a little bit finicky. The better you are at the game, I would recommend turning your controller dead zone lower. But on the other hand, you're going to have to be going through controllers more often and have more money to be able to buy more controllers. And what I mean by that is controller dead zone essentially is how sensitive your joystick is going to be at detecting movement. So the lower your controller dead zone, it's going to mean that you're going to get something called stick drift a lot faster. And what stick drift is if your joystick is barely to the left or barely to the right, your car's going to turn. And sometimes your joystick, after a lot of use, will just sit there barely to the left. The sensor will detect barely to the left, and you're always turning left when you play. I haven't seen anybody use anything less than 0.05, but most pros do use a 0.05. If you're someone who doesn't want to constantly be changing controllers like me, I go through a controller every month or two. If you don't want to change your controllers all the time, I would recommend a 0.09 or a 0.1. This is still going to give you the majority of the control that you need for sensitivity, but you're not going to get stick drift very quickly. You go through a controller maybe once every year or two. So I would recommend that if you're you're a little bit more of a casual, but you do want this to be all the way down, guys. This is going to allow you to get proper air roll control, flick control, and turning with your joystick. If you do not have this, it's going to be harder to do what you want to do in game. Okay, guys, so dodge dead zone isn't the most important setting here, but it is kind of important to have some kind of range. So I would do anywhere from 0.5 to 0.7. Essentially what dodge dead zone is how sensitive your controller is going to be for when you want to flip. So if you move your joystick literally the smallest amount to the left and then you press X twice, if your dodge dead zone is all the way down, you will flip. But if your dead zone's all the way up, you will not flip. Does that make sense? So you want to have something in the middle where it's a reasonable amount of joystick movement, where if you move it like that much, you will then eventually flip if you press the jump button twice. So it's important that you guys move your dead zone within 0.5 to 0.7, guys. Over on your actual bindings, this is probably the most important section of the video besides the video section, guys, which we'll get to in a second here. So essentially with your controls, and I am on a PC using a controller, so just ignore the keyboard bindings here, but essentially drive forward and drive backwards, just keep it on default. Now I would recommend, guys, for boost, power slide, and air roll, these are the most important settings that people mess up all the time. This is very important. You actually probably want to have your boost on a trigger on the back. So personally, I use R1 on my right hand, and then power slide and air roll on L1, because you can't power slide while in the air and you can't air roll while on the ground. So they don't really affect each other. So you can have both of them on the same bind. And it's actually nice because while you're landing, say you have to air roll to get that landing and then you want to drift after, you can just hold the L1 button, which allows you to drift after air rolling. It's a very convenient button to have on the same button. So I would recommend having those on the triggers. And the reason it's so important for boost to be on R1 is because it allows you to only have to have one finger over on these face buttons, which allows you to be able to do something called fast aerialing, which allows you to press and hold the boost button while spamming the jump button very, very quickly. And it's hard to spam and hold two buttons at the same time if they're all on the face button, because normally boost is on circle here and you can't press X and circle and triangle to look at the ball. It's too difficult. Your thumb has too many buttons to press. Put it on a trigger. And I would also recommend, if you're going to use my controls, to hold it in what's called crab, which means that your index finger over here is on R1, your middle finger over here is on R2, and then on the other side it's the same thing. You have R1 for index and you have R2 for your middle finger there, and then you just have both your thumbs on the joysticks and on the face buttons, guys. So that's very important. Ball cam should be on triangle. Your rear view should be on R3. And then this one's important as well. Air roll left and air roll right should be on the face buttons that you just removed. If you're wondering what air roll left and right is, that's another conversation to get into for another time. It's going to take up too much time, but essentially you want to put these on your face buttons, which you just cleared up. It makes it a lot easier. You're not going to be air rolling while jumping, so you're not going to have to worry about pressing multiple buttons. So this is an ideal placement, your air roll left and right on these buttons. I personally use arrow left on circle and arrow right on square, but it's up to you. Just circle and square, guys, whichever one is the best. And then you want to go down to scoreboard. I personally have this on my share button, but if you are on a console, I would recommend putting it on one of the arrow keys that you use for quick chat. That way, if you just hold it down, you can see the scoreboard. And then coming down all the way here, guys, to the reset shot button. This is going to be very important for free play. I also have this on share, but if you do have a console, again, that's going to pull you into a whole nother menu. So you can just put it on the up arrow or something like that. Moving into interface, this is not as important, but the most important one here is your nameplate scale. You do want to increase that to 140. It allows you to see people behind the ball a lot easier. So you do want to actually increase your nameplate scale to 140, guys. It's very, very important to do that. And then moving into match notifications, this is essentially just going to remove what a save, like on the screen, or shot or clear on your screen. For me, it's distracting. You can keep it on and have it at all, but if you do want to remove that and only have it where it's like the kickoff 3, 2, 1 or 10 seconds left, 1 minute left, whatever, you put it on time updates only. Now, this is the most important setting in the entire video. Nobody is telling people about this setting, and it is so big that I guarantee you, if you guys turn this setting off, it will shoot you up in the rankings. It is so important that this little box right here, you guys check it off. It's so important, guys. And essentially what that is vertical sync. You want to turn off vertical sync, guys. what that's going to do is it's going to allow your controller to move quicker. And what that means, if I were to press, let's say, the up arrow key and move in the menu, it will actually, the game will detect that I moved up quicker. It literally makes you faster. Vertical sync slows your game down to make it look nicer. You do not want that. You want optimal performance. Turn it off. Over on the settings, if you're on console, it will look a little bit different, but essentially what you want is the only setting on a high quality or quality if you're on console is render quality. Everything else should be on the most performing option. So you want to turn everything to high performance or performance and turn off all of the checkboxes, guys. You do not want a single checkbox on. It will make the game difficult to play and it's too distracting. So turn everything off. It increases performance. You want everything on high performance except for render quality, guys. And then if you're on a PC, I would recommend full screen as well because it adds input delay if you're on borderless or windowed. And then lastly, moving into audio, guys, this one doesn't really matter. It's just preference, but personally I find the ambient noises and the crowd noises which go oh when you get close to the net, it's distracting for me. I just want to hear the game. I want to hear people are demoing me. I have it off. I have the music off because I'm a streamer. I don't want to get copyrighted, so I literally only have gameplay and then voice chat if someone's trying to talk to me, a game which I don't really use, but other than that, it doesn't really matter. All right, guys, that's it for the video. I hope that helped you. If it did, drop the thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.